that screen.
Mm-hmm. And share. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lunch and Learn. I am Greg, one of the technical trainers at Decisions, and I'm happy you're with us today. If you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat, and we will try our best to answer them. We will start in just a couple minutes. I'm doing some homework on Andy's question. Andy, I'm going to try my best to help you in just a minute. Let's see what we have here. Let's see what this does. So while I'm doing this, we can go ahead and start, I guess. So Andy is asking, is there a step with which I can calculate some expression which will end up 1, 2, 3, etc., and then allow outcomes for 1, 2, 3, etc. Andy, I'm going to allow you to talk right now. If you want to add anything or change anything, go ahead. I'm going to fiddle around with possibilities.
Yeah. No, I just want to be able to pull in some step where there are at least two inputs. The first input would be a number, and that number could come from anywhere, like an evaluate expression or whatever. But the input, the first input would be the expression to evaluate, or just some number. Right. And you know that number is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Just a simple counting number. And then what I want is outcomes for each of those numbers. So let's say, I don't know, let's say I calculate, the day of week. So 1 through 7. So if the day of week is Sunday, I want an outcome for 1. I make it go to whatever, but I want to have 7 outcomes from it, representing the numbers 1 through 7. So if the input number is 1, it will go to number 1 outcome. If the input is 2, it'll go to number 2 outcome.
Okay, so tell me, so for the expression part, I can see how we can pretty easily do that with the truth table. I'm sure you can imagine that too. But tell me more, the expression piece. Maybe I'm not understanding here. You're evaluating
it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Somehow or another, I'm calculating an expression. I've already done that. The expression I've calculated is going to be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. What I want to have is a step that has a variable number of outcomes. So that if if the number I have is 1, it will go to the first outcome. If the number I have is 2, it'll go to the second outcome.
Okay.
So in several languages, it's like a select case, or in Excel, there's a choose formula function. You have the same in Excel VBA as well. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's something that says, here's an expression, and make it follow one of several different outcomes if the expression is 1 or 2 or 3.
Okay. I think we can accomplish this with a string match step and a truth table. Have you thought about that yet, Andy?
Well, but how do I have a bunch of different outcomes?
Right.
That's
Yeah,
where I'm hung up on it.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Let's just do this for now. I've chosen the data type integer for now. That probably, if we're going to use a string match step, we should probably change it to string, but let's go ahead and just set this up. So we have some sort of number as a string for now, at least. We want to make that equal to, and we want to, let's say you want to output, what are you thinking the output would be? Just
No.
random.
Not an output, an outcome. I want to have a step where I would have 7 arrows coming out of it, which would go to 7 different places in the flow.
Okay.
So you know how when you have a true false, you have 2 outcomes,
Yeah.
true and false.
Okay.
I want to have something which has, let's say, 7 different
Gotcha.
outcomes.
Okay, then let's go back and concentrate on a string match step.
Well, it's a number, but that's all right.
Yeah. I mean, we can convert the number to a string pretty easily before the inputs here, but let's just say 1, 2, oops, 3. I'm not typing well. 4, there we go. 5, 6, 7. String to match. Let's
Okay, wait a minute. How are you doing? Oh, okay. What step is that? String match.
String match step. This is really, I think this
that's
is what you're
exactly what I
wanting.
want. Yeah, that's exactly what I want.
And you can see what to do from here. I think you can, to move into the string match step, if you want to convert it from an integer, a decimal to a string, you can do that. And then just have each output, have it evaluate the string. And then depending on what it is, you can just output it to the next thing in your flow, whatever that may be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, all right. So you can have, well, now hang on a minute. Can you go back to the steps? To the step, I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now for possible matches, you can't feed it a string list that you can select from the flow, can you? It has to be determined right there at
Yeah,
design.
you do need to identify it here first to match the string. You're probably thinking that you have a lot of different strings to match? Is that what it is? Or
No,
would it just
probably
be more
not.
like
I mean,
7?
actually, the case I have in mind is that, and you may be familiar with it from a colleague of mine who I think might be on the call here, but anyway, we have a number of input files for a financial model, and they're coming from various different sources. So they're coming from other companies. So we can't control what they're sending us.
Right.
And the thing is that they're delimited files. That's all we know. Some of them might be tab delimited, some of them might be comma delimited, some of them might be semicolon delimited, some of them might be delimited with whatever. Okay. So what we're trying to do is to figure out, well, first of all, we have to have some way of determining what the delimiter is, and maybe we can do some sort of mapping that it says, if it comes from ABC company, they always send comma delimited files, so that's fine.
Right.
Right. But the other thing is that we need to have a whole bunch, we need to be able to import them with the import Excel or CSV step, right?
Okay.
But again, with the import Excel or CSV step, you cannot choose the delimiter by saying select from flow. It can't be determined at runtime. You have to choose right at design time that it's a CSV type of file and that the delimiter is a comma or the delimiter is a tab. So what we're looking for is, the users got to tell me somehow the delimiter's a tab or the delimiter's a comma. So if the delimiter is a comma, you have to have you have to have several copies of the import Excel or CSV step. And when you, as you know, when you populate that step, these files could have over 200 columns. So
Right.
when you pull in the step, you have to go through that tiny, tiny little box that's in the properties pane and really carefully fill out the column mappings, right? So then we have to make once that's done and it works, you make several copies of that, and in one of them you change it from a comma to a tab, and another you change it from a comma to a semicolon or whatever it may be.
Right.
But then when but we're not going to find out until the user runs it, what's the delimiter? So we have to actually ask the user, what's the delimiter? Is it a comma or a tab or whatever? And then based on that choice, you run the import Excel or CSV step whose delimiter is comma or tab or semicolon. And
Sure.
that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of things to evaluate before you
Mhm.
send it on through the process to do
Yeah.
whatever you're trying to do. And you
Well,
may, I
see,
mean,
but the thing is, here's the thing, in that context, right? I wish it were possible to determine at runtime what the delimiter is. And in that step that you just showed me, the string match
yeah,
step, I would like to be able to determine at runtime what the list of values is.
right,
But
right.
unfortunately, I mean, I can see that's kind of difficult because then, I mean, how would you have predetermined outcomes, one per list? I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's sort of tough. But that's good. The string match step. If I know it at design time what the strings are, then that's a good thing.
yeah, that's definitely your best bet for that
Okay.
step at that point in the process. And
Well, that
I mean,
definitely
you may
helps.
want to experiment down the line because you don't know if it'll be, what
Mhm.
delimiter will be used or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe using a rule set, conditional rule set. If it's this,
Mhm.
then run these rules, and then and then you could feed that into the string match step after that. But um,
Well, I actually
yeah,
came up with some sort of guesser, which it takes it looks at the big text, it looks at the entire text and determines, first of all, let's say I'm guessing that it's a tab. Are there any tabs in the entire file? If not, then it probably
mhm,
isn't, right? But if so, it will look for the number of tabs on each line, and they should pretty much be the same,
right,
right? And
right.
so if I determine that, then it's probably a tab. But what I'll do is I'll go through the whole excuse me, I'll go through the whole um, file line by line and determine, are there the same number of semicolons or the same number of commas or whatever in each one. It's not an exact thing. But I'm trying to determine. See, this is the thing. Nobody's going to know at design time how these files are formatted. These
Right.
analysts who are going to run our final system are going to bring down these files, download them from the sources, and all they know is that they're delimited with something, and they may be able to look at it in Notepad and say, oh yeah, that looks like it's a tab delimited file or whatever. And
Right.
then the human beings have to tell decisions. There's not going to be any, um, um, there's nothing like Excel has, which sort of guesses what it is. So,
You know, we
yeah,
had in the chat, Jeremy was saying maybe using a convert CSV to Excel step. So
yeah,
you actually convert the CSV to Excel and then
right.
move on
But
from Excel.
but you still need to know what the delimiter is, right? It doesn't guess, does it?
Mm,
See, Excel has a guesser, right?
mhm.
If you pull a text file into Excel, it kind of looks at it and says, it looks tab delimited to me. And it puts up a dialog box, a wizard, if you will. But it has already guessed. This is delimited. It's delimited with tabs. It has quotes, whatever. It's done some guesswork. Is there any sort of guesswork in decisions that it does?
Mm,
Ignore first line. Yeah.
I don't,
Okay. Try to
I don't
format it.
believe so.
Yeah. So type is a CSV file type. Okay. Worksheet name is
Mm,
CSV. Yeah. If you choose the type.
mhm. I mean, I don't have anything
Uh,
running into it yet, so
Make it
it's
a make
okay.
it a constant, Greg. See if it gives you a
Yes.
drop down.
yeah,
Right. Use that. Make it constant. Now you drop it down.
it does here. Yeah,
Okay. But you're
you
converting.
could
So
choose
choose.
auto select.
Well, I think the idea is it's worth it, that it may be worth an exploration for you, Andy, is
Mm.
if Excel can choose its own type, it's possible that this step, since it doesn't require a delimiter to be chosen, that when it converts the CSV to the Excel is trying to read what that delimiter is when it converts
Yeah.
it. So it may be
Play
worth
around with
testing to
that.
see if that does what you want first. Because if
Hmm.
it doesn't require a delimiter, it may actually do that um, for you. And then you won't have to worry about the other one that requires a delimiter.
Yeah. So you can move from this step into the string match step. If that is true, if that Excel outputs, your data with no delimiter, or it already figured out the delimiter.
All right, I'm gonna try to mess with that. Maybe I can get some samples that
Yeah.
from the past of these input files and just try to bring them in, and see what the guesswork is. I mean, one of them though, we had a wrinkle. It was tab delimited. However, each line began and ended with a double quote. So
Um,
that's going to totally throw off even Excel. It's going to bring it in as one field.
hmm.
So that's just something we have to deal with because these guys well these guys made its format very badly.
Hmm.
All right. All right. Well, good. So these two steps here, that's the string match and the convert CSV to Excel. We got to mess with that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
In the opposite order of this, obviously.
I
But,
want to, yeah.
yeah.
All right.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
good
Well,
luck,
thanks
Andy.
very much. And I got to
Yeah.
run after this at this point, but
Okay.
this oh, good. This is helpful. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right.
If anybody else has any questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat. All right, I'm reading Carter's question here. Data reader, active form flow that shows the data here is the control that receives is visible with an instance. My Zoom quit. Did it not quit for you? Oh, I think I'm back. That was strange. Sorry about that. If everybody can hear me. Let me share my screen again. Yeah, that was odd. My Zoom just crashed unexpectedly, but it came right back up. Okay, let me get that chat back again. Okay, Carter, I know you had a question. I started reading your question. I'm going to allow you to talk because unfortunately, when my Zoom crashed, I lost your question. So do you want to explain it? You are able, I see it now. It's coming back slowly. Carter, are you
I
there?
just posted it for you.
Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, basically it's a control visibility question on a data repeater. We've got multiple elements on the data repeater and we want to hide all but one element. We've accomplished the same thing by explicitly stating which element we want to keep, but instead of explicitly stating and using a string match on a value that we're passing to say this is the one we want to keep, I want to do it by hiding everything that doesn't get a value passed through into the data repeater. And right now, I don't know if it's, just the null values aren't reading correctly. One of the hiccups that I found was whenever I'm passing null value into my boolean, it's reading as false, and so it's not recognizing that it's null. But I don't know if that has to do with setup, or I was just wondering if you could walk through a setup where that is the use case, and then I can compare how you set it up and how I have it set up and find where I went wrong.
Sure. Okay. So you're trying to control visibility for one of the rows of the data repeater, or I mean, all of the rows, but tell me
all the
that
rows
part
but
again.
one.
All of the rows but one. What kind of data structure are you using?
A defined data structure. It has 3 strings, a boolean value, and a datetime value. One of the strings is used as like a key that's going to populate a label on the data repeater. And the other 2 strings, one corresponds to the text box and one corresponds to the dropdown.
Okay. I'm just thinking about, some of our data structures have these configuration folders that allow you to set up visibility rules real easily. So that was my first instinct. But you're using a defined data structure. So you want to control visibility for different rows.
And I also have a boolean and a date in that data structure as well.
Oh, okay. Let me go ahead and that would be better too. Oh, that's where it is. Okay.
Could we add 2 more strings to this so that we can have,
Yeah, have it
or,
be the
or just
same
like
as
1
yours.
more? Yeah,
Yeah,
just so that we can map the drop down and the text box.
Yeah.
We don't have to have a label. It's unless it'll help you figure out what's what when you're passing things into it.
you said it was a drop down and a text box.
No text box, absolutely.
So like a similar data structure here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Mm. 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 Tell me more about the active form flow that you have already tried.
Yeah, so the way that my data repeater is set up is I
Mm-hmm.
have 5 elements, a label, text box, a drop down, a checkbox, and a datetime
Mhm.
picker.
Mhm.
And then in the active form flow, what I'm doing is just having a tree set up that checks the string value of the text box. If the text box, whatever gets passed to that, is empty, then I hide the text box and then I move on to the checkbox. And then if the checkbox value object is null, then I hide the checkbox and move on to the date time picker. If any
Mhm.
of those evaluate as true, then I don't hide that element, but hide all of the remaining elements.
And so tell me about the error that you're getting. What's happening exactly?
It's hard to debug because I'm not getting an error.
Mhm.
Right now, all that's happening is I see the checkbox and the checkbox just isn't being hidden, but everything else is being hidden. So I don't know if it has to do with like the object is null comparison that I'm using.
Hmm.
And I run it at startup.
You do run it startup. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think at the same time as I sort of replicate this. Um, whereas I might not need to build all of it, but nothing's coming to mind yet, so it's tricky. Why are some things hidden and not one? Where else would there be? Yeah. Hmm. Okay, tell me more about your flow in here. You have some sort of
Like string. I think the first one is like string is empty.
Yeah.
The decisions equivalent is that. Let me open mine up. Sorry, I don't even have it open. I'm doing this from the. Let me get that open. Oh. All right, yeah, if string is empty.
Mhm.
And that is a, let me see if that's my text or, yeah, string null. String is null or empty is the flow step type.
Wait, what did you say the step was?
String is null or empty. I think it's called is empty in the toolbox. That's the toolbox name.
Yeah, okay. So you're trying this first, inputting a string. And then what are you doing after this string evaluates if it's empty or not?
If it's true, then I just hide the text box.
Mm-hmm.
So just to hide control for that one.
And then the
Then if
opposite is show, right?
And then I don't even show since it starts as shown.
Mm.
And this won't be changing throughout the flow.
Yeah.
So I don't need to show anything that has been hidden already. And then after I hide it, I then evaluate for the checkbox.
Hmm. Why would this not work?
But Carter, you're saying it's only not working for that checkbox, that Boolean value,
The Boolean value isn't being hidden.
but the other ones are. All the other functionality works.
All of
it's
the
just-
other ones are being
Yeah.
hidden. And it very realistically could be how I'm passing data into the data repeater.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of whispering over to Greg. Is I have a feeling that because it's a Boolean, it's not implying that unchecked is empty. Like it's not a null values going in. It's a a false, a negative. Maybe on that one you could do just a check instead of doing is empty, you could just run a rule that says Boolean true false. And if it's well, I guess then that wouldn't show up either.
There's also like a true false value can be shown. Like a true value can be shown, a false value can be shown.
Right.
But if that doesn't exist, if I'm trying, the purpose of this form is it's a master form to edit data throughout the application.
Okay.
And so I'm going to pass something into this, and depending on where I'm accessing this form within the application, I'm going to be editing different types of fields.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I will be editing a Boolean value. And so I need to say, hey, is this value going to be true or false? And other times I'll be editing a text field where I don't need to see the Boolean at all.
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, I'm skeptical that the problem is actually in your active form flow with that logic there. That's pretty sound logic, pretty simple. I do feel like it would have to do more with your data repeater.
And the only thing I've been able to test and check is if I take, so inside of my flow that calls my form that has the data repeater, that has the active form flow. Even when I pass in, like I build my array of that unique data type and I build the data and I set the boolean value within that defined data structure to null. If I set another one of my values to the text equivalent of that boolean, it's showing as false.
And this might be a simple look at it, but would it be possible to make checkbox initially not visible and then run a different rule that will just show control if value exists? But I guess then it would still show because we're not. I think we're all on the same page that it's about how the data is getting into the form, into the data repeater, and not so much about how the active form flow works. But
yeah, no, that's a good idea, and I can try setting it up that way and just flipping the logic around.
yeah, so you just make it initially not visible, and then in your active form flow, run it startup, and then have a show control, but use a rule that says like if value exists or if true or false, show control. But that the sentiment you said about changing the name of a label or another form field to the same value as the Boolean, it shows the Boolean is also strange. But maybe I'm mishearing you.
No, yeah, that's it. It felt strange, and I'm 95% confident that I had everything set up correctly to debug. But to complicate things as far as debugging is I don't have the global debugger, and all of the data that I'm passing into this form is dynamic based off of selections made on the page. And so maybe another question would just be, what's the best way to debug that without the global debugger?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a better way than using the global debugger. Why don't you have the global debugger?
It's locked down to only admins.
That's a good question, Carter. I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna have to research that and see, because yeah, you have so much dynamic data coming through. You want to be able to see it.
I appreciate it. And
yeah,
if we don't have other questions, I'll try initially hiding and then setting up rules to show and see if that works. Always worth a shot. Do we have any other questions? Because I also have another unrelated question.
we do have one from Smitha. Let me go over to Smitha and
Absolutely.
see what's going on there. But you've given us quite a bit to chew on, so hold on. Let me check out what's Smitha here. Hold on, Smitha, you have a question or a comment?
Hi. Yes, I had a question on how to handle access. If by access, what I mean is that we have a couple of flows, right? So all that is fine, but we might want to expose only, say, to our business users only some rules which they want to edit, and even in the rules, we don't want them to just remove whatever they feel like, just like if it's like an if block or something like that, if loop, things like that. We just want them to edit only that portion of the flow and, merely not do everything possible. So how can we control access and decisions?
But so are you saying specifically that like you'd like for some people to have access to part of a flow, but not the entire flow?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say my instinct is it's not possible, and somebody else sitting next to me is like it's not possible. So I'm
Okay.
sorry. I don't think that's gonna be I think you're gonna need to figure out a different way to do that.
Okay, if in a flow it's not possible, that's fine. But how
Mhm.
do we, in general, what is the best way to handle access in decisions? Do you suggest having AD groups, or what do you suggest?
Sure. So you can set things up. If you can see that I'm clicking on the flows here.
Flows.
So you can go to manage and then um, manage permissions. Here it is. And then you can, you can give certain accounts permissions here or certain groups permissions here.
Okay.
And then you can give them access to can use, can open, can view, can edit.
Okay.
So that's the best
Okay, got you.
solution
So
for that for those specific
flow.
flows.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
I
can do
think
that with any designer element.
okay, great. I think that might work also for us because in flows, if we can give them, they can use it, but they cannot, what is that, delete it or whatever kind of a
Right.
thing. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I can try what is available there. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best way to go for specific projects, for elements
Okay.
within the project.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we do have, sorry, Carter, we got another question from James too. So James, I'm going to allow you to talk. Give me just a second. Okay, go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm looking to change like the basic look and feel of reports in general
Mm-hmm.
with CSS, but when I'm just not connecting the dots of how to put CSS on there because I created a CSS for our overall institution, but
Yeah.
when I go into when I drag a report over, it's not coming up on the control CSS class. So is there something special I need to do if it's a report?
Okay, tell me what you're doing again to configure the CSS.
Well, I just made a general CSS and it's not even showing up yet.
Oh, I see, like a system CSS.
Yeah. And so I haven't even begun to say, okay, now how am I going to make the report itself look and feel different? I mean, and I was just trying to get, our general CSS to, apply to a report, see what that would look like, with the
I
different
see.
things I did do. But what we're wanting to do is like, they don't like the way, the spacing is on it or the font, the distance between rows, all that stuff. They want to kind of manipulate that a little bit.
Right.
And I'm not even, I'm no CSS expert, but I wanted to look into how that would be possible in decisions for reports to
Mhm.
get the look and feel to be different than the standard, delivered look and feel.
Okay, so despite having a system-wide CSS, they want to go into a particular report and change the CSS only to that report.
No, I do want a system-wide one. I want
Yeah.
one that we could use by default so that all of our reports look the same. It's just like, this is the way all our reports are going to look. We don't want them to be so widespread, how the decisions standard is kind of a little bit more widespread. They want it a little bit more refined.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a little bit smaller spacing to get more on a page, things of that nature.
Okay. I'm gonna actually ask Rob because he's been doing some coursework on CSS
Sure.
recently, and he can speak better to any updates with CSS and maybe help you out a little bit more, James.
No problem.
Yeah, we got you're pretty right on about how it should work. Going in and implementing the CSS into your system is going to be the first path. One thing that might help you out, and I'm not sure if it'll affect spacing, but it's just a good thing to know that most people don't know. Greg, can you go into system for me, system settings, and then right click on system at the very top, and then go to themes and go to theme editor.
Right. Mhm.
And in here,
Okay.
you'll be given some options of like maybe go to personalization. You can click these drop downs, and this isn't fully for all the spacing.
Right.
but this is going to help you with some stuff that might help you system wide. If you want to change the color of certain elements and things like that, you can use a CSS tool in Explorer, or sorry, a CSS extension in Chrome to figure out what the name of each item is, and then find it in here to change some of that stuff for colors. But let's go back into a report for me, Greg, and we'll kind of poke around in there. Yeah, go into a report. So then under, let's try colors and icon. It's under the, and then hit add for me. So you're also, if you scroll down to the bottom here, you're also given the option for CSS class names. But that's going to help
probably
with,
where that's pulling from when I.
yeah. So that's going to help with
make it
some
up there.
fonts and some background color icon imagery. I'm
Right.
on my machine right now. I'm trying to find stuff about spacing, but again, as you alluded to, CSS has a lot of depth, and
Yeah,
I have
I'm in the process of just trying to learn CSS better myself so I can do a lot of what they're asking me to do with look and feel type stuff. We have a whole UX team that kind of dictates how
Yeah.
things are supposed to look and feel, and
right.
some of it they're like a little bit picky as far as I'm concerned, but they want it done that way, so I have to come up with a solution.
Again, not a perfect solution, but just something that another thing that customers might not be aware of. Do you know about we have the CSS generator indecisions?
Yes, I have tried that. I mean, that's got its limitations.
Colors,
it certainly doesn't do
right.
work with what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do here.
Yeah.
Because this gets down to, like I said, the spacing of a report, the lines between things, just different aspects of a tabular type report or grid that would show up that
Under
would want to.
Greg, can you close out of this for me as well?
Mhm.
Go to the grid view dropdown in properties, and then conditional formatting, click add.
Right.
And if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll allow you to apply to the top row. If you scroll down to the bottom there, wait, why is yours not? So we're still on colors there. We're trying to apply CSS to the rows here. Grid view CSS. You know what I'll do, man? I'll go ask somebody real fast. If Greg, you kind of want to poke around for a moment, I'll go ask.
I'm kind of playing around. Seeing specified. You can specify the grid settings type, icon type, editable, show slider, show actions, row background, make grid stretch. Let's see if there's any difference yet. Nothing there with spacing.
I think what we're wanting to manipulate mostly is the font and spacing of the grids. They want it to be more condensed style, not so spread out or just big, I guess, would be what they were telling me. We don't like the way it looks so big.
Yeah.
We want it more like Excel, where things are kind of more
Right.
condensed.
Yeah, I've seen a few options for changing font and color, but I haven't seen anything for spacing yet. I'm sure there's got to be something somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking I would have to dig into the CSS for that, but weren't quite sure how to apply it to a report or make it.
Yeah, so the information that I got was about that. They said basically the path of least resistance is that Chrome Dev tool you use. If you're in Chrome, you can go to Dev Tools and highlight the section and figure out what the naming convention is. And then when you are writing your CSS, you can either go in and edit. Let me pull up mine. I might be able to screen share in a second. Give me a second, Greg. You might be able to edit it in that place, but let me just make sure I can find it before I.
Did you want to screen share or do you
Yeah, give me one
in?
moment. Give me one moment here. Yeah.
Here, I'll share until you're ready. I'm just in the dev tools trying to remember where the CSS stuff is.
Yeah, and I did find that because I have created CSS for our overall look and
Yeah.
feel like forms and things like that. But again, and I probably could change that and make it. But I just need to figure out how to connect it to reports in general and all that. It's not that familiar with CSS yet.
So where would be the overall? Open up page design. Over trigger report viewer and then right, so report view is just an object on the page. And that will give you CSS options, I think.
Like you heard the echo of the truth there. Give me a moment and I'll pull it up for you. Cool. All right. So what you're going to want to do here, I'll do it for a moment. Greg.
Okay.
Share screen. So an option for you, James, and again, a lot of stuff's just going to be, some trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, your report, you're not going to have people go directly to the report. You're going to put it on a page or a dashboard.
Most likely, yes. Yeah. This is mostly for forward-facing reports. I don't care what it looks like in design.
So the place to apply it to the overall, Jared just kind of gave me the insight, is when you add it to a page or a dashboard,
right.
you can click it here and then add that CSS styling.
Right. That's where I was, and that's where I am, but I can't find my CSS style. I don't know where do I create that will show up in that dropdown, I guess is what I'm saying. Because I did create a CSS general style, but it doesn't show up here in this dropdown. I created one called like FSU01 CSS for just, forms and stuff like that. But it must be a different type of CSS that pulls down there.
I think part of it is it's only going to populate the CSS down here if it has the name, like the element in it. Like, so we'd have to figure out what the name of this element is so that when you write your CSS, it'll show up.
Okay.
So, because like if you just have CSS, because you could just put a CSS file in that says round edges of Silverlight tab button. But if you don't have a Silverlight tab button, that option's not going to show up for you.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So,
I will have to figure that out then, because
yeah,
I think I just need to do a little more research on CSS and then how it ties into decisions to come.
yeah, it's and I can put it in the chat for you, like some stuff that I've made about it. I'll put it in here in just a moment. But yeah, you need to figure out what the name of that control is so that you can designate it. Because, with the,
Gotcha.
as I'm sure the seeing cascading, it'll always just take the parent formatting, the parent style, unless otherwise designated.
Okay.
So we need to specifically designate, hey, we have a CSS style for the Silverlight tab container or whatever the name of the button is, which is eluding me at the moment as well. But
and that container would be the form itself, right? And then everything within that form, like the line spacing and all that stuff.
Yeah, you would need to designate like, hey, in a form designer, one of these kind of things described by form designer, this kind of thing, or at least form designer as a parent, you could say, hey, in the form designer, we want these features, and they should show up down here in review, because like I know for a fact that, because I've just been messing with buttons, like it's not working for me there. But if I go over onto a form or something that has buttons,
Can't act a fool. Well, Tommy's phone. I don't know.
Not sure for me either, huh? What am I missing here? I literally was just doing this.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. If it doesn't relate to that form, if it's looking for specific style features that are not defined within your CSS class, it's not going to pull it.
Oh,
It's gonna drop down.
reason why is because I had this set up so you can dynamically run a CSS, like,
Gotcha.
so that
Mhm.
that's why this was maybe not showing up on my end. Yeah, there we go.
Huh.
But now that we have it, I could go
Right,
change because it knows that I've made it specifically for these buttons. I've
right,
made it specifically for,
right. Well, actually, you've probably made it for a form type, right?
well,
Within that, you've got buttons defined.
it's actually, I'll find it on this one because I know this one's called like a Silverlight. Well, here's what I've been doing with it is I have this extension, just called, what is this called? Magic CSS editor. And it allows me to go through and select a tool and it will tell me what the thing is. Like it's a,
Oh.
and it will tell me what the element is when I click on it and go, okay, this thing. It'll tell me, okay, it'll give me some features
Oh, wow.
about what the actual namesake of that thing is.
Hmm. Okay.
Here we go, preview. Yeah, so this is called a silver button style button control. So you'd write CSS with the parent of silver button style button control. And
Right.
then underneath that parent kind of header, kind of give you behind the scenes here. Let's go. I've got a bunch, sorry. And I don't think you need a lot of this intel. But yeah, underneath the element, you would need to describe, hey, these are the things that we're going for.
Oh, cool. Cool. Is this
I can send it to you.
documentation here available out there?
I can send it to you.
I'd love to have it. I mean, anything that I can use to help me with the CSS and decisions would be
Yeah.
helpful. That's what I'm working.
I've kind of slowly been starting with it, but if you go on here, I did make like a using CS and it kind of talking about
Okay.
how to implement it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can put all this in the chat for you, and I'll give you this presentation as well. But so basically, and again, if you're using that tool, you need to be in a preview or something. So like, here's a preview. I can click this, and then click that, and it says, okay, this thing is a silver text box input.
Okay.
Whereas this button is a silver button control, silver button style button control.
So is that like a little module you wrote?
This thing right here?
Yeah.
It's a free extension. It's
Oh.
so if you type in the one that I have, I took from Jared, is called Launch Magic CSS Editor. So again, we're outside the scope of probably what we're supposed to be talking about here, but
okay. Well, that's cool.
yeah, Magic CSS Live Editor. This one right here.
Okay.
And it just lets you kind of click on an item and say, okay, what's the name of that? So that when you write your CSS, you're writing it for that specific element name.
Okay. I wonder if that'll work on the forums too.
Yeah, almost.
I mean the reports.
Let's check it, man. We got a millisecond of time here, hopefully. Do I have a dashboard already? No, I don't. Stupid Zoom window. Page, add a page / dashboard. Let's just pick something random here. Oh, of course, there's nothing on it. But here, I'll just go from here. Yeah, so it'll tell you.
Cool.
This is called that thing is called the report grid viewer.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. That's the path I need to start looking down. Okay.
Yeah, so
cool.
so in your CSS file, you'll need to designate, hey, for a report grid viewer,
right,
it has this styling.
right.
And as an example, like here's for these features, a silver label, a rich text display, a holder, a checklist, a blah, 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 do these things.
Gotcha.
So you'll need to
okay.
designate, hey, for these things, do these things. And if you already ran a CSS generator, you can kind of look at, you know, how that is written and go, okay, for a silver label, blah, 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 do those things. For these things, do, you know, these things, put a border by default.
Right.
But you
Okay.
can kind of reverse engineer and say, okay, or you can might even be able to do like a control F and say, okay, I know that that's a, I don't know if it'll search in there. Yeah, it will. Nice. But you can go in there and go, okay, report styling and see how we have ours formatted and be like, okay, what changes need to be made? If you click on this, it'll let you download it up here
Okay.
and you can open
Yeah.
that in a text editor and then just
Yeah,
adjust.
yeah. That's how I did my original one. I just downloaded one of y'all's and
Yeah.
started playing with it and importing it back and forth and seeing what it did.
Yeah. So I think the main things here, you just got to figure out what the name of the item is, but using that Google extension will give you that information.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll play with that some more.
Yeah.
What I can figure out. Thanks a lot, man. That was very helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
Before we go, it is after 1 o'clock, and I wanted to Carter, tell you that sorry we couldn't get back to you for your other question. You're welcome to it sounds like you may, after experimenting with what we were talking about, may want to submit a support ticket perhaps if you can't figure out the solution for that data coming into the data repeater. But your second question, you can either again talk to support if you'd like, or come back on Monday for the next lunch and learn. Do you have a preference?
The specific use case that I was actually needing for the second question actually got changed while we were on the call. So it would just be for learn's purpose, and we're all good right now. Thanks, though.
What was the question,
Gotcha.
Carter? I might be able to reach out to you too if it's something that's
the combination of parameters in a defined SQL query and separating that from parameters that I'm actually wanting to pass, like declaring a variable within a SQL query within decisions.
Yeah. Okay. So then what I'll do is let me make sure I got it. Can you say it to me one more time and I'm going to type it out and then I'm going to see if I can get you some intel so you don't feel like you're what is the
I have a SQL query
okay
that I'm defining a parameter in and using that parameter within the SQL query. Like it's just it's a binary 16 pointer.
And you're
Carter, did you say the use case changed and so this isn't relevant anymore? Or?
It's not immediately relevant. I'm sure it will be relevant later.
Can you just say it to me one more time? I know you said I'm sorry, I'm a slow typer. SQL query, you have variables that you're getting dynamically?
Yes, but those are solely for like there's a different select statement that populates the SQL variable.
Okay.
And that variable I don't want to interface with decisions at all.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's possible since the way that you declare variables in SQL and decisions are the same.
Okay. I'll see if I can get a little information and I'll maybe reach out to you. But like Greg said, it might just be a supporter or maybe to be just totally transparent. I don't have much intel on the SQL side of things, but I know Jared does, and I know a couple people here are experts in it. So I'll just do some probing and I'll send you an email.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Amen.
And then one last thing before we go, Smitha, I did want to answer your question real quickly. Let me share my screen. You still there, Smitha?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I did want you to know, Smitha was asking if there is a timeout limit set by default for flows and other designer elements. If so, can we change that? And your answers are yes and yes. There is a set default time, but you really need to go into the designer element that you're talking about and find out what that is, and you can change it. I just wanted to show you real fast the flow. So if you look in your properties menu on the right side and you look under settings, you can usually find it in the settings property somewhere. You can adjust different settings this way. You can stop recursion at whatever you'd like to set it to. You see the keep active time span. You can adjust this and change it
Got it.
here. So I think that's what you're probably looking to do.
Yes, I think that's very helpful. I can try changing and see because it's timing out at some point. I think it will work when we adjust these parameters.
Great.
Thank
All
you. I'll
right,
try and
then.
let you know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, everybody, have a good rest of your day. Have a good rest of your week and weekend, and we'll see you next week on Monday.